Taoiseach, with fuel prices at an all-time high, pushing hauliers, bus operators, farmers, taxi operators and ordinary living fathers and mothers from rural Ireland close to the edge, forcing what we all saw last week with the closure of our capital on 2 occasions due to the hauliers and farmers' peaceful protest and more being planned. Taoiseach, how do you explain to those who I have just spoke about and also our young people of our rural communities as to what they can do if they can't afford to put fuel in their cars? If people can't afford to fuel the lorry or the local bus, what is your government's solution? Because everyone's looking for a solution but hearing nothing from government. Just look at the public transport comparison from rural Ireland, West Cork, to say somewhere like Bray in County Wicklow. The only public transport that leaves the Beara Peninsula, the Sheepshead Peninsula, and look at the Mizenhead Peninsula, where there is one public transport service, Bus Éireann, at approximately 7 in the morning. This goes through Schull, Ballydehob, onto Skibbereen and Clonakilty. Now look at Bray. The Dart leaves Bray station every 5 minutes to Dublin and back up to 10 o'clock each morning. After 10 o'clock, it's every 10 minutes the Dart leaves to Dublin. So from 7 to 10, there's approximately 25 plus trips to Dublin. That's not including buses from Bray to Dublin. In the Mizenhead, Sheepshead and Beara, we are looking at 2 services in total out of the peninsulas in that much time and nothing in. The same from Dunmanway to Clonakilty, from Drina, as well as places like Ballinspittle and Barryroe. Little or no public transport services. Taoiseach, this is a small example of an unfair society and shows you the massive gap that's between the 2 counties in the same country. The Climate Action Plan plus this carbon tax dream bubble your government's in hits fuel the most and severely hits transport in rural communities. But instead of putting the horse before the cart, it's the other way around. As Fianna Fáil, with Fine Gael and the Greens, have hit the people of rural Ireland first, straight out of their pocket to pay for your pet projects in our capital. Common sense is very scarce up here, and common sense was sadly lacking when your government taxed fuel out of the reach of the ordinary people, who have no choice but to use a car to work, to shop, to collect their pension, to get basic food items, or take and bring their children, as the bus that left West Cork at 7 will be the only means of public transport until 7 that evening, when it returns to Goleen. We are hearing proposals of a Bus Connect service in rural communities, which is to be welcomed, but they are saying this could take up to 5 years. If this is the case, stop the carbon tax applying to rural Ireland immediately until we have a public transport service to jump on buses, the same as others in this country, every 5 or 10 minutes, coming and going from areas like Dunmanway to Clonakilty and back, from Ballineen to Kinsale and back, and get all these services to link with West Cork Connect, who is a private operator who leaves Bantry and Skibbereen several times a day to Cork and back. Taoiseach, will you promise to stop the carbon tax applying to rural Ireland till we have a public transport service in place immediately? Or if not, can you tell me and the people of rural Ireland, what are your plans to cut the extraordinary fuel charges in this country at this time like no other country?
First of all, I believe in a stronger public transport system in rural Ireland and right across rural Ireland. And the Minister for Transport and Climate, Eamon Ryan, published a very substantive investment programme in rural transport recently, which I think will represent a very significant advance on what we've had currently or heretofore. And I think it's extremely important that we improve transport overall, both public transport, and give additional supports to existing transport operators in rural Ireland. We won't have a dart, I suspect, from Beara Island or from Beara, and obviously in areas of high population in Wicklow and places like that, there will be a greater frequency. But we do need to increase frequency. I know Deputy Christopher Sullivan was suggesting to me that this idea of 1 hour every hour in every village. No, that's a big target and a significant target, but that's the type of approach we want to move towards in respect of public transport in rural Ireland and our climate responsibilities. The carbon tax isn't the issue in terms of the current increases in fuel and energy. It's a global issue. It's fundamentally responsible for the very significant increases in fuel, energy pricing. Electricity eventually will follow through. Hopefully that will abate in the first quarter of next year. That's what the European Central Bank is saying, and others. I accept the jury's out in relation to it. The government has responded to this in respect of the budget, in terms of social protection measures and in terms of taxation measures, to try and alleviate and make some contribution to help people cope with the increase in fuel. On the carbon tax issue, you see, that will deal with very substantial investment in retrofitting, which will give ultimately lower energy costs for homeowners across the board. And it will, and that it's far more sustainable into the future. But it's not the main driver by any yardstick of the current increase in energy prices across Europe and across the globe, and Ireland is part of that. We acknowledge that there's a lot of pressure on people, and government is constantly keeping the situation under review in terms of what measures we could implement to try and reduce the electricity bills for householders in this country. And that would be in addition to the measures that we took in the budget in terms of social protection and in terms of the taxation measures themselves. And, you know, so that is our position, Deputy. And in the context of rural Ireland, you must acknowledge yourself, if you look at the variety of schemes that we've initiated in the past 12 months and substantially resourced in terms of the rural funding, for example, in terms of capital projects, in terms of leader funding, in terms of CLAR funding, you go across the board, there's been very substantial schemes initiated. And this government has demonstrated a real commitment to rural Ireland through the level, and that's manifest in the level of resources that we've allocated. And that will continue, I can assure the Deputy of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Collins.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your reply, Taoiseach. But don't mention about leader funding, because that's after being cut going forward. So I'd say stop thinking about that dream in you. And the public transport is the same. Minister Ryan kicking the can down the road. It might happen in the next few years. You're saying Deputy said this and Deputy said that. There's no delivery. There's one public transport service leaving the Mizen Peninsula at 7 o'clock in the morning. Nothing's returning until 7 o'clock in the evening. And I asked you for solutions to this fuel crisis, but you have no solutions. What do I say to the haulier operator who's paying $1,000 a month more on fuel this year than last year and can't continue? What do I say to the local bus operators who are barely surviving? Look at West Cork Connect, an independent bus operator who goes to Cork several times a day from Skibbereen and Bantry, providing an incredible service, who it was costing on a round trip last year €110, now it's costing €165. Taoiseach, you don't seem to be able to grasp the crisis that is out there in rural Ireland, as there is absolutely little or no public transport for us to avail of, as this government continues to take €57 of tax one way or another in every £100 spent on petrol. Taoiseach, will you immediately reverse that carbon tax increase in rural Ireland and let us know further measures, or any measures, your government is taking to save many of those I spoke about earlier from going out of business?
Well, again, I could go through all the various schemes that we have announced from Leader, an extra from 44 million to 48 million now. Will fund the existing programme, the new transitional programme, the community development programme, 5 million, the island infrastructure, 2 million plus, and I hope we can do some good work down in Dorsey Island, for example, which will be a very welcome initiative. And in terms of public transport, as I have said, there will be a significant, and it's not kicking the can down the road. The programme has been announced in terms of an enhanced and expanded rural transport network in terms of rural Ireland. And you know, I'm a great believer in public transport. My late father drove many of us to different parts of West Cork, and fully aware of the needs of the Mizen and Glengarriff and Beara, the whole of them, all those areas that need a good regular bus service. They're growing and they're developing. We have to put in alternative investments into these locations as well, in these towns in rural areas and right across the western seaboard. And I know that Minister Heather Humphreys and the team at the department, through the Rural Regeneration and Development Fund, are really expanding that. I mean, 250 million has been allocated, covering 164 projects. Like, that's real, substantive, it's been allocated. You should acknowledge that from time to time. I know you have to raise issues, I don't dispute that, but I think that there's a need sometimes for a bit of balance, you know. On the which? On the carbon tax.
Carbon tax, fuel.
I gave you an answer on the fuel. That the government is considering that.
57 to every 100.
And I gave you the answer on the carbon tax.
57 to every 100. The people can't cope in rural Ireland, and you're walking away from this.
As I said to you last week,
straight answer. No answer is what you give.
Colleague last week.
We're over time.
No answer.
We're over time.
Okay, I appreciate that, Leslie Corlin.